Welcome to the Silverstone Technology Cluster's Ask the Expert podcast. I'm Jeannie, your host. The mission of the STC is to support advanced engineering, electronics, and software businesses, and we're always keen to share industry knowledge and insights. In each podcast episode, we sit down with seasoned professionals and industry leaders to uncover valuable knowledge, share real-world experiences, and explore smart strategies for navigating the challenges of modern business in advanced engineering. This episode is proudly sponsored by Cottons Group, a leading firm of chartered accountants and business advisors with offices in Northampton, Rugby, Daventry and London. Today I'm joined by Charles Hill and Luke Prout. Hi Charles, hi Luke.
Hiya.
Hi Jeannie.
Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. So you guys are joining us from Cottons Group today. Did you want to tell me a little bit about yourselves, about how you got to your current roles at Cottons Group and what you do there?
Yeah, Luke, fire away.
Okay, so I'm Luke Prout. I'm tax partner and I run the tax team across Cottons Group. So I cover all of our offices and predominantly, in terms of the tax compliance side of it. So you want your tax returns filed and completed. That's something that we do. But ultimately, my day job really is more on the advisory side. So my role is to advise businesses and their owners from not just from tax business structuring, succession planning, wealth planning, basically the cradle to grave type journey we do with a lot of our family owned businesses, and then some of our larger corporate clients. I look after them on a day-to-day basis in terms of mainly advisory and structural matters.
Great. Yes, I'm Charles Hill, and I'm also a partner at Cottons. I focus more on the compliance side, so audit and also accountancy. So not necessarily just looking backwards at what the history has told us for the last 12 months or whatever period of time, but also looking forwards. And key is looking forwards and planning effectively for the future, whether that be new projects, new exits, whatever. But that's predominantly my role. I've run a team out of Northampton as well.
Okay, fantastic. So today we really want to talk about what questions you can ask your accountant to help you make better business decisions and to help you grow more. So, really we want people to understand that your accountant is a partner. They're there to help you with your strategy. They're there to help you, achieve better. So we've come up with some questions, and hopefully you can help us out and give us some guidance.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Brilliant. So, first and foremost, a great question for someone to ask is, am I actually making money on each of my projects?
Yeah, I'll probably pick this one up. It's a good question, really, because it's so fundamental to the business, isn't it? So you could break down your overall turnover by project, and whether that's a lot of small projects or a small number of big projects. Trying to understand how profitable those projects are is imperative, isn't it, to your overall business model? Whether you've got the right software, whether you've got the right strategic partner to help you understand exactly what costs are driving those project turnover and sales costs. It's also trying to understand, is there any hidden costs in there? Are there anything which perhaps is hiding in your P&L, which should be attributable to those projects as well? And working with your accountant to try and understand that, just talking it through at the very least at the very start, should be a great help to a lot of these business owners, I'd say.
Okay, brilliant. And when we're talking about industry specific reliefs as well, I think this is more for you, isn't it, Luke? What kind of industry specific reliefs should I be looking for? What am I missing out on?
So in terms of tax planning, tax savings, there are the usual ones. So for example, you're in certain industries, you've got to think about the research and development tax credits, which are, while reliefs have been watered down over the last couple of years, they're still very valuable to businesses that undertake qualifying R&D. And that's not just developing a new product, but that could also be looking at processes as well. A way of achieving something. And R&D, it's it's got to be done properly. It's got to be done carefully, and it's got to be supported by evidence that you are generally undertaking R&D. It meets that stringent HMRC conditions, because they are inquiring, they are challenging things, and ultimately every report that we do, we have in terms of cottons, we employ, we actually have our own specialists who are employed by cottons that prepare R&D claims. We took the decision to do that, to make sure that in terms of the quality, that they are produced properly. And also, we've got one chap in our team who's from the automotive industry himself. He spent many years at JLR. So it's quite handy for us to have somebody locally who understands especially the automotive industry. But it's just making sure that that those reliefs are available. They're claimed fairly, but they're claimed correctly. And ultimately, R&D is a grant. It's a grant to incentivise businesses to invest in more R&D. That is what it's there for. So ultimately, the more R&D you're doing, the more tax benefits you get, which then you can reinvest into more R&D. One of the other tax potential, I would say, big tax benefits to look at as well is infrastructure costs. So a lot of our clients, especially in manufacturing, automotive, motorsport, they have very high capex, not just on machinery, but we're talking about land, building, specialist facilities that are being constructed. You look at Silverstone, the Silverstone Technology Park. There's an absolute abundance of new construction going there. And actually, in terms of the buildings themselves and the items fixed and attached to the buildings, a lot of that qualifies for tax relief, and it's actually missed. A lot of it does get missed. And again, we go in and we do these we survey the costs, that we make sure that allowances in relation to for example, build a wind tunnel. Is it a building, or is it actually, or is the what is it? Is it a piece of machinery in its own right? And that's the type of thing we work with our clients to maximise the tax relief on their capex as well. So I would say the biggest ones will be capex, R&D. There are plenty of others. R&D a little bit more saturated, but actually the capital tax plan, so relief for your capital items, that's the one that I think is generally underclaimed. A lot. We see a lot of it being underclaimed.
Yeah, a lot to think about there. And so what should businesses, what should they be doing to tracking, what should they be looking at to grow and to grow smartly?
Yeah, it's a good question, that one, isn't it? But it's certainly something that should be focused on asking a client should be asking the accountant, really. But I think probably the fundamental one is cash, isn't it? You can't do anything without availability of cash or access to. Once you've got that availability, trying to track those key KPIs, so making sure that your margins are probably in line with industry standards, trying to get a bit of benchmarking out there as well. Tracking also perhaps your overall overhead costs as well, making sure your bottom line is smooth and building. Probably also then looking to ask the question of, am I ready to? Do you think I'm ready to invest in new technology? Am I ready to? Is the right time now for new hires or new locations, new sites, new products? All these questions can be asked of your accountant, because they'll have an opinion. They'll deal with different businesses on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of these things, when asked in the right manner and at the right time, can all help build that growth in a careful and strategic way, I'd say.
So it's really about having an open dialogue with your accountant, really, ongoing.
Yeah.
I think business plans are very important as well. I think they're very underutilized and underestimated. And one thing we talk about when I speak with clients is actually who you want your customer to be. Because sometimes we're in the danger of, when we're early stage, we will take any income, anywhere. We're all things to all people, and actually, in terms of margins and where longer term it doesn't work, it's knowing who you want your customer to build, the particular type of customer, and making sure you go for that particular. So know your industry and know your customer, what type of customer you want, and actually be prepared. If it doesn't know the particular type of customer, for example, you know, I was using, I don't know, automotive again. If somebody wants to go and I probably won't say it these days. They're decent cars, but if someone goes and buys a Skoda, and then they expect a Bentley, we'll go to Bentley. It's knowing who, Skoda know who their ideal customer is. Bentley know who their customer is. Bentley don't try and cater to Skoda, or vice versa. So very, very different. Both sell the same product, but very different types of customers. I sometimes think that clients need to understand who their customer is, and actually, that will also unlock doors, unlock markets. It does affect margin as well. And the other thing on margin is it is really important. I've seen clients, for example, with vanity projects. Now they look very good, but when you look at the resource for vanity projects from a business point of view, it just doesn't make sense. And many times when I've said to clients, a particular product line needs to be killed. It doesn't make you money. It looks good, but it doesn't make you money. I've seen clients go from strength to strength when they've just fine-tuned, who their customer is and what they're trying to sell.
Yeah, great. This next question I think is a really important one, and it's, where am I bleeding money without realizing it? Where are those little bits being lost? Because at the end of the day, I think that's where it adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another good question, isn't it? To ask that. Ask your accountant, really, when you're going through your line by line of your P&L or even your balance sheet as well, just looking at what you've got. Have you got cash strapped up with your debtors? You're not collecting money quick enough. Have you got very expensive debt? Have you got cash that they're not earning interest as well, just in an efficient way? That's probably a minor point for many businesses, but even so, it's those little tweaks which can help. Then it's looking at the overall P&L, isn't it? It's looking at the overall efficiency. What's my staff base like? Is that generating what I'd expect? The amount of turnover and sales from that staff base, are they all utilized? Are they all busy from a level that I would expect? And then it's also down to pricing. I mean, is my price right from an ultimate product? Is that am I undercharging what I'm actually doing here? Is the market, am I really busy because I'm the cheapest in the market by some considerable margin? So there's a lot to think about there, but also, again, like I said before, it's asking those questions of your trusted advisors and professionals, which can help steer. Just making small nuanced changes can really make a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned cash flow and sort of invoicing there. How can businesses make their finance processes faster? How can they make them work better for them?
That these days, that comes down to a lot of software-based changes. So there's a lot of good software out there, which is not necessarily suitable for every single business. There's not an off-the-shelf solution to every single business at all. But certainly when you present different softwares for the SME market, or Sage, Xero, QuickBooks, the like, a lot of clients do prefer softwares like Xero, cloud-based software, which can send an electronic invoice to your customer very quickly. They can receive it quite quickly. They can almost pay it by clicking a link as well. So those sort of changes can also help that cash flow, that cash come in quicker, being able to make quicker decisions from for your business, but also not having the cash strapped up by it being in someone else's bank account. You can also use other little softwares as well, which bolt on things like Dex, changes the way that the invoices and bank statements, etc., are processed as well, cutting some of your finance costs internally. So yeah, lots to consider there for sure, and it's almost worth a whole separate topic to talk about.
Also managing your debtors, and because ultimately, managing debtors, we're effectively become a bank. We're lending money to our customers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it comes then back to, you look at your customer profile. If I've got two customers and they're both very large clients, historically they're very slow payers as well. Whereas you look at, I always say to clients, don't try and have one big customer or two. You've got to make sure that you do have an even spread of different clients and customers, and try and have no one customer say more than 10%. From a cash flow point of view, and also from a business point of view, you can have massive shocks if you've got one customer and you're reliant on that. So it's all those types of things you've got to think about as a business owner running the business is and debtors and collection of debts. It used to be 30 days. I've seen most businesses now it's 14 days, or some businesses now it's payable on invoice. And having a good debt management control, being tough. Clients owes you 100,000 and they're 60 days over or 70 days over. It's having the ability to turn around and say, sorry, can't sell more to you until you pay. And it's being brave enough to say that. And that's where it comes back down to customer spread. Quite important for that. If you've got one customer and they know you're their only customer, then you put yourself into a very awkward position.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at exit plans now and looking at the future, if someone's not quite ready to sell yet, how do they protect the future of their business for when they are ready?
Yeah. Do you want me to take this one, Charles?
I think so.
The key for selling the business is, number one, don't wait until you're in a position where you have to sell or want to sell. Talking to your accountant early. This is where we can add the most value, I think, in terms of what we can do with our clients, is to let them know. Ideally, we want clients to exit or sell their business, or with a family, it might be selling, doing a buyout, management buyout to your buyout team. There's lots of options available to somebody exiting their business. But talking to us early, we can go through all of these options. So ultimately, we want the person to leave with the most amount of money in the most tax efficient way, but knowing that their business is left in good hands. Talking to us early. All businesses are different. No one business the same. And it may well be some businesses, they're ready to sell, they're in a position, they've got a good management team, good finances, good structure. There might be some other businesses where it's a bit like, analogy I use is a house. I've got a house that needs a bit of work on it. It's going to sell less for something that's had the brand new kitchen, the bathroom, and it's all it's ready to sell. The same with a business. And sometimes we work with our clients maybe 2-3 years in advance of a sale. But there's a few we're working with at the moment where the exit plan's there, the 3 to 5 year plan's there, but actually the business isn't quite there at the moment to enable the owners to leave the business. Because if the owners are so key to the business, if they walk away, the business just collapses. Then equally, it's not ready to sell. It's not ready to sell. We have to effectively leverage the owners out of the business over a 2 to 3 year period to be able to sort of say to them, if you went in one day a month, could the business run itself? Yes, right. That's a very attractive business then to be sold, and you'll get the best money for it. So that's something we do. The other one's structuring. Businesses grow organically. I set my company. I've got this division, that division, that division. I've made surplus profit. I bought a couple of rental houses, also property. Got a couple of classic cars in there. Suddenly you have this limited company that's got lots of lovely and wonderful things in it. That's really not in the place ready to sell. So again, we work with businesses in advance, maybe to extract some property out of the business, maybe to restructure the business to put different divisions in different companies. So they might want to dispose of one particular type of the part of the business, but not the rest. And that's something, again, we do it well in advance. It means that actually the sale process is smoother. Due diligence is a lot easier, because due diligence is a very big part of selling a business. the purchaser is doing their due diligence on you, which is financial, tax. You need to, and sometimes getting all of this in place before a sale pays dividends at the other end. One, it means a smoother sale, and two, it means it's less less warranties you got to give, less disclosures you got to make, and ultimately a better price for it as well.
Excellent. The next question I don't think is something I would typically think to ask an accountant, but I think it with all of the experience you have across sectors, I suppose it is quite relevant. So how do I know if the business is diversified enough to withstand sector changes and move into different sectors?
I think some of that comes back to what Luke was saying before, really, doesn't it? In regards to making sure your customer base is quite lengthy, if possible. For example, if you're only supplying a certain product to Formula One teams, it's making sure that you've got enough products to be able to withstand any changes to what might happen to the Formula One market. So yeah, it's very linked to what Luke was saying there a moment ago, I'd say.
Also stress testing, like regulation changes. Now, if there's a regulation change, can I sell my product? And again, also evolving emerging industries, renewables, battery technology at the moment. We've got a number of clients that do a lot of battery technology work, and some of it, is very, very interesting. But it's also, it's future. It's very hard, with all of a crystal ball. And to be quite honest, if we had a crystal ball, I'll probably play the lottery instead. But ultimately, it's being able to spot those trends and make sure you are current. You are keeping current. And sometimes you may go into an area, it pays off. Sometimes you do, and it doesn't. That's when we look at structuring again. Because if you're going in for a different type of sector, we may decide to do that in a separate company, for example, as part of a group, to ring fence that risk. Because if it goes well, great. But if it doesn't, the rest of the business isn't affected.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the next one is particularly interesting for a lot of our members, as we've got a lot of SMEs. It's our directors and shareholders. Are we paying ourselves efficiently? Are we getting the most out of our business that we can in that way?
Yeah, this is a good question, really, isn't it? And the short answer is it really depends on the individual circumstances of who holds the shares, who are the directors, what their involvement is. There is no obvious mix to dividends and salary these days. The gaps in tax rates have narrowed a lot over recent years. I think one relief that has been probably not utilised as much as it perhaps should have been is employer pension contributions directly from the limited company. But other than that, it will be very much down to a case-by-case basis, and certainly something you should be discussing and talking to your accountant about. Look, is my salary a bit daft? Should I be taking less of a salary, more dividends? Again, just doing the sums.
Yeah.
Just looking at remuneration, where you are, say, a sole shareholder, I always say to a client, pay yourself what you need, not what you want. Because if you only need 100,000 a year and you're paying yourself £500,000 a year, then all you're doing is paying a lot of tax. You own the shares in the company; it's yours. You're just paying tax, extracting profits on money that is entitled. Whereas if you've got maybe 5 or 6 shareholders that are not related to each other, and again, it's a very different type of conversation you have, because they will want paying, they will want their money out. And that's when we can look at asset holding companies, which actually under the last budget we've just had, been able to insert a holding company above each individual shareholder. Actually, it's become a lot easier to do because of some relaxations they've made. And that's something I'm doing at the moment, actually, with another client. Is they've got a company, we've got 3 shareholders, and we've put in a holding company above it for each of them, so it's got three companies. It doesn't quite work for inheritance tax, but they're not an age where inheritance tax is a problem at the moment, but I haven't risk warned them. But ultimately, we could pay a dividend up to their holding companies, which is no tax, and then it's up to them to decide. Some of them want to take the money out, so lifestyles. But again, the other one's lifestyle as well. Okay? So you need to say to a client, keep your income below 100,000. But it doesn't help when you spend 250,000 a year because you've got children at private school or very expensive horse racing. Keep 3 horses or whatever. It's it's very hard. Lifestyle will dictate what you earn, but there are ways and means of managing the situation. And I just want to touch on pensions, which Charles had mentioned, and that is something that's really underutilised. The changes for salary sacrifice on pensions coming at the end of this parliament doesn't affect company contributions for directors. That's still you're not sacrificing anything. And that's something where, typical situation we see with a lot of our SMEs is, maybe you should say it's 2 spouses usually. They can put in, 120,000 a year, whatever it is, into a pension fund to carry back 3 years into a pension fund, get tax relief for it, and then the pension fund, for example, can go and acquire the commercial premises that the business trades out of. Like that to me is very, very sensible financial planning. To use a pension fund, to own premises that the business trades out of, especially if you sold the business, because you retain the premises and then you'll be charging a rent to whoever owns it afterwards. It's a safe investment. So again, obviously in conjunction with an IFA, because obviously we can't give financial advice. It has to be done with one of our IFAs within Cottons. But again, pension fund in terms of profit extraction, it's still underutilized, especially with some of our younger clients. Somebody in their 30s, and you say, you can't touch it till you're 55, and I'm not interested.
They're not thinking of,
But that was me 10 years ago. But now, you can sort of think, I'm sort of 14 years away from it now, so you do start thinking about it now. So yeah, no, it's a conversation we have a lot with clients about profit extraction and remuneration, especially this time of year in January.
I think what we've talked about has probably answered this question, but there's always an opportunity for you to give a little bit more. How does someone know if you're using your accountant strategically or if you're just using your accountant for compliance?
Yeah, I think Luke touched on this at the start, didn't he, really? And if you're only going to see them and talking to your accountant once a year to discuss the previous 12 months, that's not enough. Yeah, you're not using them strategically there. It's with a lot of my clients, we tend to have say an annual meeting. We tend to do that, but also quarterly meetings as well. So it's very much a case of looking at the past. That takes up however much time it does, but also it's usually twice double the amount of time, really, which is then talking about the future, looking forward, like we said at the start, looking at the product mix, looking at what opportunities do we have in the market, what can we do with this excess cash? Do we need to look at ways to manage our risk more by inserting a holding company? Are we getting closer to looking to exit in a few years' time? These sort of things which we're all talking about regularly. And I think that's the point where I would say that if you're only having an annual meeting just to tell you what your tax bill is, it's probably not enough in this modern day.
And I mean, my final question is, I think, probably one of the most important, and it's, looking at the risks in the supply chain, trading overseas, what little bits pop up there that maybe haven't been accounted for?
Supply chain and trading overseas is, it's really, really, actually, it needs to be gone into, I would say, with eyes wide open, and every jurisdiction is different. The amount of businesses I speak to that go overseas and think, I'm just going to go to, usually it's UAE, go and actually when our advice, we're a member of an international network, so it's quite good for us because any client that wants to go trade anywhere in the world, I can get them advice within sort of 24, 48 hours of where they want to go, and I can put them in touch with whoever they need to be anywhere, most countries around the world. But supply chains and there's tax, there's VAT, there's employing people, are you moving stuff, there's customs. And all of these come back earlier into what Charles was saying, your profitability. If I'm selling something to a client in Singapore, and I need to employ people, people in Singapore are very expensive. Property and real estate, it impacts your project margin. So it's one where that actually really needs really good advice and planning. I've got some clients, for example, where actually we've switched countries off because actually it's just not economically viable to trade in that country for the amount of turnover they're doing, for the risks. Fact, VAT is probably the biggest one because a good while we've got European VAT, you think it's harmonised, well, it's not. Each country has its own slightly different rule, especially if you're installing goods. So if you're installing goods and you're there, physically installing goods, say in France, you might have to actually register there. Germany, you definitely do. Whereas Ireland, I don't think you do, and that's where good advice and to be able to get this good advice, and we can provide that. Really pays dividends, especially for overseas trading and looking down your supply chain.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. But also, I guess it's credit control as well. It can be a bit of an issue, common issue when trading overseas. So just being aware of those risks.
Well, that's a big you'd ask for money up front, wouldn't you? You'd ask for a deposit.
Yeah.
If you're buying something, I've got clients that buy stuff from overseas, and they request to be paid 25,
Before it's
30%
left.
up front. So if they're doing that, why are we not doing that? I say to the client, why are you not doing that? Oh, well, I want to win the business. Well, you do, but equally, you've got to protect yourself.
Because it's
Exactly
also
that.
that time between when you ship something and when it's received. And it's that time, if something's on the water for 2 months, it's 2 months where you've sent a product and you're not getting the money for it, really.
The other one's your commercial
Yeah.
contracts as well. Getting your commercial contracts and terms, your terms correct with your customer. Who pays the duty?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for insurance while it's on the sea? Who's responsible for all these types of things need looking at. They need advice. If you're importing or exporting goods, you need to make sure you're registered to do so. You've got you're using a proper freight forwarder, a proper company that actually, there's lots of things trading internationally. It is, Chamber of Commerce is very good, actually. One of the things is the Chamber of Commerce historically has been very good at that type of thing. But then, it's when you're trading in that particular country and employing people, and that's something that we can definitely help with. We've got access to, we've got some very good friends and colleagues from around the world that can advise.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think a lot to think about. I think we've covered a whole range of different topics there. And thank you so much for joining me, Luke and Charles. It's been excellent.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And did you have any final thoughts you wanted to leave our listeners or our viewers with?
Well, whether it's us, whether it's your accountant, especially tax accounting, it in the long run, it pays the dividends to simply advise early. Yes, we have to charge for things, and that's why we're a business too. But ultimately, that may be the difference between making the right or the wrong decision. Amount of clients where, or prospects I've seen, or no, that's too expensive, and then they go on, carry on, and then ultimately, I've had clients come back saying, I'm really sorry to take your advice, can we do it now? And sometimes it's too late. It's happened. So I'd say take the advice. We're there to support businesses. That's our number one priority, is to support our clients, anybody, and the same. It's to support and help
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I would just encourage clients or prospective clients just to ask questions. Um, there's limited scope for stupid questions in these situations. It's certainly something that I'm very happy to listen to and help guide where possible. If I don't know the answer straight away, I'm sure we can find it out reasonably quickly.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me. It's been really interesting, and actually I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners, our viewers have too.
Thanks, Julie.
That's it for this episode of Ask the Expert. Thank you so much for listening or watching. We hope you picked up some useful insights and inspiration along the way. If you enjoyed the conversation, please give us a like, share or rating on the platform you're using. Please follow Silverstone Technology Cluster on LinkedIn and subscribe to the STC YouTube channel or our podcast on Spotify or Apple, so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, a particular topic or a guest you'd love to hear from, please drop me an email to jeannie@silverstonetechnologycluster.com. Bye for now.